Smartphone gimbals. They make smartphone filmmaking easier and more fun. But it takes a bit more than just a few stabilized shots cut together to make a great video. So I've got some tips for you. 5 do's and 5 don'ts of using a smartphone gimbal. And hopefully these will help you to create something more professional and more cinematic. Don't use it for every shot. When people get their first gimbal, one of the most common mistakes is thinking they have to use the gimbal for every shot. They mount the phone in the gimbal, spend some time filming, but with the phone always in the gimbal. The problem is when you come to edit this footage, it all has a rather similar character. You can end up with a final video made up of shots going left to right to left to right, maybe tracking around things, and it can be a little bit boring. So rather than just shoot every shot with the phone in the gimbal, why not mix it up? Just take a moment and think about what you want to say with this particular gimbal shot.
With the DJI OM4, you've got this magnet, so you can just, it's very easy just to, and now you can get different type of shot.
Don't always use the gimbal's app. The apps which come with the gimbal often offer lots of fun features, like story mode, barrel shots and so on, but they often don't give you the highest quality video or offer the most options in terms of frame rates and resolution. For example, with my Samsung Note 20 Ultra, using the Mimo app, I only get 30 frames per second. Using the Samsung app, I get 60 frames per second. I can shoot slow motion and super slow motion. I can also use the Samsung Pro mode and shoot 24 frames per second or 8K resolution. I can also access the phone's tele-lens, while the Mimo app can't. So if you set the basic mode in the Mimo app and then switch to your phone's native app, you can still shoot using the gimbal. And with the Samsung main camera app, I have found I can use the record button on the gimbal and use the joystick controls. Don't overdo it. Gimbals and their apps have so many fun features, it's easy to get carried away. But if every shot is flying around, spinning here and there, it can be too much. The audience won't be watching what's in the frame. Their attention will more likely be on the camera movements themselves. In a way, it draws attention to the person shooting the movie and not the content of the movie itself. But a professional filmmaker doesn't want to draw attention to himself or herself. They want you to be drawn to the images which go together to make up a story. And I don't just mean drama movies on Netflix. If you're making an advert, for example, then the most important thing is the product. If your ad only sells the camera operator and not the product, you won't get hired again. And if you're making a real estate video, you're still telling a story. A story about how great the house would be to live in, and this goes for travel videos too. It's a story. The only reason to have a video full of crazy gimbal shots is if you're actually trying to sell a gimbal. If you watch Apple's most recent shot on iPhone video, many shots were taken using a gimbal, but every shot was created and thought out beforehand to tell the story. Most of the shots are simple and subtle to make the most of the location, the actors, the lighting, and so on. Don't use the wrong gimbal. If you have a DJI Osmo Mobile 3 or OM4, these are quite small gimbals. They fold up, they're light and convenient. But if you want to add extras like a grip or a case, lenses, filters and so on, then you'll probably find the gimbal is not big or powerful enough. Overloading your gimbal can cause it to malfunction, motors to overheat and wear out quicker, and the battery to drain quicker. Well, of course, we don't all have lots of gimbals to choose from. If you want to use lots of extras and you don't have a bigger gimbal, then think about alternative ways to get a shot. Quite often, using the inbuilt stabilization of the phone is enough anyway. Don't shoot every shot the same. The easiest shot to achieve using a smartphone gimbal is moving forward, and then there's panning around a subject. So these two shots are usually the most common shot you'll see in people's videos. There's nothing wrong with these shots at all, but if every shot is the same or similar, your video will often come out a bit bland. So if you want to improve, try different shots. Shoot at a high frame rate. Now, don't always shoot at 24-30 frames per second. If you shoot at 60 frames per second or higher, Then you can slow it down in your editing software and create slow motion. Slow motion makes our smooth videos even smoother, but it's often impossible to achieve using the Gimbal's camera app if it doesn't have access to those high frame rates. And this really relates back to my previous tips about using different shots. You don't need to make every shot slow motion, but use it wisely and add some nice variety. If you really want your videos to stand out, think carefully about your location. That doesn't mean you have to go up a mountain or into an exotic jungle. Of course, those locations are impressive, but what really counts is that you think about it. When we were commissioned by Generali to shoot a music video using smartphones, we were given a list of possible locations. We visited those locations and took lots of pictures. Then I spent the next few days thinking about how we could use the background and the architecture. For example, the skate park had nice graffiti and a bridge. The graffiti would work to give us an urban, street-level feel to the video. We also had access to shoot inside a shopping mall. We had all kinds of ideas for using these stairs and escalators to get interesting angles and backgrounds. One option is to completely control the lighting, like professional filmmakers do. A major reason why the latest shot on iPhone video looks so beautiful is because they control the lighting in every shot in some way. One of the easiest ways to control lighting is by using filters like neutral density, polarizing, or diffusion filters. Another way is to have a big lighting setup. Now, I realize most of us don't have access to big lighting setups and a lighting crew. However, you can still think about lighting. For example, if you're filming a human subject, direct sunlight is often too harsh. The background gets washed out. The light on the face is unflattering. So find a shady area out of the direct light. Now the light will be indirect and therefore more diffused. If you don't lock settings, when you move the camera, the exposure can change during the shot, and this usually looks less polished, less professional. If you're using an app like Filmic Pro with your gimbal, then you can have complete manual control. Set shutter speed, ISO, white balance, and so on. Also, most gimbal apps allow this as well. But if you don't have time for that, it's very easy just to make sure exposure, focus, and white balance are locked. A common beginner mistake with filming is to let our minds wander, and the camera wanders with it. When we're doing that, we're not thinking about how we're going to edit the video we're filming. So we just film random shots of whatever happens to catch our interest. If you want to make the next step to the next level, start thinking about how your shots will edit together before you shoot them. If you really want to be professional, then make a storyboard first. You don't have to go that far. But again, this is what makes the difference between an interesting story and a boring story. This is what our video stories would sound like when we let our minds wander. I went to the park. There were trees and leaves, a park bench. This is how big the park is. There's a gate as well, and a fence. People put their rubbish here. You see, in this story, it's just one random thing after another. And that's okay if you're just making a camera test video and want to demonstrate its capabilities. But for everything else, if we want to engage our audience, we need to think more about how one shot goes to the next shot and then to the next shot. So, if you think about how your shots will edit together before you shoot them, this will help you create more exciting video stories. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.